These cars look like they came from another world. Almost forgotten and incredibly rare, here are 7 machines I still can't believe were real.
Number 7. 1948 Tucker 48. When I first discovered the 1948 Tucker 48, I honestly couldn't believe this car was built in the 1940s, because everything about it looked like it belonged decades in the future. At first glance, the Tucker doesn't even resemble the typical American cars that rolled off assembly lines after World War II. Most post-war automobiles were simply updated versions of pre-war designs. They were larger, heavier, more traditional. Manufacturers were focused on getting cars back into production as quickly as possible. But then, Preston Tucker appeared with a completely different vision. He wasn't interested in building another ordinary sedan. He wanted to build the safest, most advanced automobile America had ever seen. And looking at the Tucker today, it's hard not to admire just how ambitious that dream really was. The first thing everyone notices is the strange headlight mounted right in the center of the front end. People often call it the Cyclops eye. At first, it looks like a styling trick, almost like the car has 3 eyes instead of 2. But that center headlight actually had a purpose. When the driver turned the steering wheel, the middle light turned with it, illuminating the road around corners. Today, adaptive headlights are common on luxury cars, but Tucker was experimenting with the same idea back in 1948. That alone tells you how far ahead this car really was. And the surprises didn't stop there. Unlike almost every American sedan of its time, the Tucker placed its engine in the rear of the car. That decision shocked the automotive industry. Most manufacturers followed the same formula. Engine in the front, power sent to the rear wheels. Simple, reliable, familiar. Preston Tucker wanted something different. By moving the engine to the rear, he hoped to improve passenger space, create a smoother ride, and completely rethink how an American automobile should be designed. It was an incredibly bold decision. But perhaps the most impressive part of the Tucker wasn't its engine or its unusual styling. It was its obsession with safety. Today, we take safety features for granted. Seat belts, padded dashboards, safety glass, crash protection. But in the late 1940s, very few manufacturers made safety their highest priority. Preston Tucker did. He believed automobiles should protect the people inside them instead of simply transporting them. The Tucker featured a padded dashboard designed to reduce injuries during collisions. The windshield was designed to pop out during an accident instead of shattering into dangerous pieces. The steering system was engineered to reduce the risk of serious injury. There was even a protected area in front of the passenger seat that Tucker called a safety chamber, where occupants could move during an emergency. These ideas sounded almost unbelievable in 1948. Many of them wouldn't become common throughout the automotive industry decades later. Looking at the Tucker today almost feels unfair. It's easy to forget this wasn't a concept car. It wasn't an experimental prototype built just for auto shows. It was supposed to become a real production automobile, a car that ordinary Americans could actually buy. And that's what made the established manufacturers nervous. Preston Tucker wasn't just introducing another new car. He was challenging the way Detroit had been building automobiles for years. He believed the future belonged to innovation. He believed customers deserved something better. For a brief moment, it looked like he might actually succeed. Thousands of people became excited about the Tucker. Newspapers covered the project. Investors believed in the dream. The public wanted to see this futuristic automobile succeed. But then everything started falling apart. Financial problems began to grow. Production delays slowed the project. Government investigations created enormous controversy. Whether those investigations were justified or not remains a subject of debate even today, but the damage was undeniable. The company struggled to survive. Instead of producing thousands of cars, Tucker's dream came to a sudden end. Only 51 production cars were ever completed. Think about that for a moment. A car designed to revolutionize the American automobile industry, reduced to just 51 examples. That's almost impossible to believe. And that's exactly why the Tucker 48 became a legend. It wasn't just rare, it became a symbol of ambition, of innovation, of one man's determination to challenge an entire industry. Today, surviving Tucker 48s are among the most valuable and admired American automobiles ever built. Collectors treasure them, museums proudly display them, automotive historians continue to study them, because every Tucker tells the story of what might have been. Looking back now, it's clear that Preston Tucker wasn't crazy. Many of his ideas eventually became standard across the automotive world. Safety-focused engineering, advanced lighting, modern interior design, innovative thinking. He simply imagined the future long before everyone else was ready to build it. The 1948 Tucker 48 wasn't just another post-war American car. It was a revolution on wheels, a machine that challenged the biggest companies in Detroit, a car that proved one person's vision could shake an entire industry. It may have produced only 51 cars, but its influence reached far beyond those few surviving examples. Because sometimes history isn't written by the companies that build the most cars. Sometimes it's written by the people brave enough to ask, what if we did everything differently? And that's exactly what the 1948 Tucker 48 did. It didn't just look ahead, it tried to bring the future to America's roads decades before the rest of the industry was ready.
Number 6. 1937 Cord 812 Supercharged Phaeton. When I first discovered the 1937 Cord 812 Supercharged Phaeton, I honestly thought I was looking at a custom-built luxury car from the 1950s, not something designed in the middle of the 1930s. Because almost everything about this automobile seemed impossible for its time. The body was low and sleek. The front end was smooth and elegant. The headlights were completely hidden inside the fenders, and under the hood was a supercharged engine that gave the car performance most drivers of the era had never experienced. It didn't look like a car from 1937. It looked like the future had somehow arrived decades early. At a time when most American automobiles still followed traditional designs with tall bodies, exposed headlights, and simple engineering, Cord decided to ignore the rulebook completely. The company wasn't interested in building another ordinary luxury car. It wanted to build the most advanced automobile America had ever seen. And for a brief moment, it actually succeeded. The first thing everyone noticed was the famous hidden headlights. Today, pop-up headlights became legendary on sports cars like the Corvette, Ferrari, and Lamborghini, but the Cord was doing something very similar decades earlier. Instead of leaving the headlights exposed, they disappeared into the front fenders, keeping the nose clean and beautifully streamlined. With a simple control inside the cabin, the driver could raise them whenever they were needed. For people seeing this in 1937, it must have felt like magic. Nothing else on American roads looked quite like it. But that was only the beginning. One of the biggest engineering achievements of the Cord 812 was its front-wheel drive system. Today, front-wheel drive is completely normal. Millions of cars use it every day. But in the 1930s, it was considered incredibly advanced. Most manufacturers continued using the traditional rear-wheel drive layout because it was simpler and better understood. Cord chose a far more difficult path. By sending power to the front wheels, engineers were able to lower the entire body, creating a car with proportions unlike anything else on the road. It sat lower, handled differently, and looked dramatically more modern than its competitors. Then there was the engine. The supercharged Phaeton wasn't just built to look fast, it actually was fast. The supercharger forced more air into the engine, producing significantly more power than the standard version. For drivers in the late 1930s, the acceleration was genuinely exciting. This wasn't simply a luxury cruiser, it was one of America's earliest high-performance luxury automobiles. Driving one must have felt completely different from driving an ordinary sedan. It combined speed, style, and advanced engineering into one extraordinary package. Step inside, and the experience continued. The interior reflected the same philosophy as the exterior. Everything was designed to feel elegant and sophisticated. The dashboard looked modern, the controls were thoughtfully arranged. The low seating position made the driver feel connected to the road. It was a car designed not only to impress people standing outside, but also the person sitting behind the wheel. Unfortunately, creating a car this advanced came with enormous challenges. Every innovative feature increased complexity. The front-wheel drive system required precise engineering. The supercharged engine demanded careful maintenance. The unusual transmission became notorious for being difficult to operate. And the hidden headlights added yet another layer of mechanical complexity. All of this made the Accord incredibly expensive to build. It also made the car expensive to buy. During the late 1930s, America was still recovering from the Great Depression. Most families weren't shopping for futuristic luxury automobiles. They wanted dependable transportation. Even wealthy buyers sometimes preferred more conventional cars from established luxury brands. The Accord asked customers to take a chance on something completely different. Some did, many didn't. Sales never reached the levels the company had hoped for. Despite all of its groundbreaking technology, the Accord 812 struggled in the marketplace. Its advanced engineering impressed journalists and enthusiasts, but it also frightened buyers who worried about maintenance and reliability. Owning one wasn't as simple as owning an ordinary American car. Eventually, production came to an end. One of the most advanced automobiles of its generation quietly disappeared from showrooms. For years, it became little more than a fascinating footnote in automotive history. But history has a funny way of changing opinions. Today, the very features that once made the Accord difficult to sell are exactly what make it legendary. Collectors admire its breathtaking design. Engineers respect its innovation. Historians recognize it as one of the boldest American automobiles ever built. Many of the ideas introduced by the Accord eventually became common across the automotive industry. Aerodynamic styling, front-wheel drive, hidden headlights, performance-focused engineering. The future eventually caught up with Accord's vision. The 1937 Accord 812 supercharged Phaeton wasn't just another forgotten American car. It was one of the most daring engineering achievements of the pre-war era. A masterpiece that arrived too early and spent the rest of history proving just how far ahead of its time it really was.
Number 5. 1941 Chrysler Thunderbolt. When I first discovered the 1941 Chrysler Thunderbolt, I honestly couldn't believe this car was real. At first glance, it looks less like a production automobile and more like a dream car from a futuristic movie. The long, flowing body, the smooth, rounded fenders, the elegant chrome details, everything about it looks like it belongs in the 1950s or even later, not in 1941. If someone told me this was a concept designed decades after World War II, I probably would have believed them. But that's exactly what makes the Thunderbolt so incredible. It was one of the most advanced American automobiles ever created before the war, and somehow almost nobody talks about it today. During the early 1940s, most American cars still followed fairly traditional styling: large grilles, separate fenders, conservative body shapes. Manufacturers were improving their cars every year, but most of them still looked familiar. Then, Chrysler decided to throw away the rulebook. Instead of building another luxury coupe, the company created something that looked like it had arrived from the future. The body was incredibly smooth. Almost every sharp edge disappeared. The lines flowed naturally from the front of the car all the way to the rear. Even standing still, the Thunderbolt looked like it was moving. It had a sleek elegance that made almost every other American luxury car seem old-fashioned. And then came the feature that completely amazed me. This car had a fully retractable metal hardtop. Think about that for a moment. Today, retractable hardtops are something we associate with modern convertibles. Many people believe this technology appeared decades later, but Chrysler was experimenting with the idea back in 1941. At the push of a button, the steel roof could disappear into the rear of the car, transforming a stylish coupe into an elegant convertible. For its time, that was almost unbelievable. Most convertibles of the era used simple folding fabric tops. The Thunderbolt offered something far more sophisticated, something far more futuristic. It wasn't just clever engineering, it was a glimpse into the future of automotive design. And that wasn't the only thing that made the Thunderbolt special. The car was packed with advanced ideas that showed just how ambitious Chrysler's engineers had become. Every detail reflected quality. Every curve was carefully shaped. Every piece of chrome seemed perfectly placed. This wasn't simply transportation, it was rolling artwork. The interior matched the exterior perfectly. Luxury materials surrounded the passengers. The dashboard looked elegant instead of cluttered. Everything was designed to create the feeling that you were sitting inside one of the most exclusive automobiles in America. This wasn't a car built for ordinary buyers. It was built to demonstrate what Chrysler believed the future could look like. And honestly, they were decades ahead of their time. But just as the Thunderbolt was beginning to impress the automotive world, history stepped in. World War II changed everything. Instead of building futuristic luxury automobiles, American factories suddenly shifted toward military production. Passenger car development almost came to a complete stop. The industry's priorities changed overnight. The Thunderbolt's future disappeared almost as quickly as it had begun. Only a handful of examples were ever completed. The dream of turning this extraordinary machine into something larger never became reality. Instead, it became one of the rarest and most mysterious American cars ever produced. Looking back today, it's almost impossible not to admire Chrysler's vision. Many of the ideas demonstrated by the Thunderbolt would eventually appear on production cars years, even decades later. Streamlined styling became the industry standard. Retractable hardtops eventually became a reality. Luxury grand touring cars embraced the same smooth, elegant design philosophy. The Thunderbolt wasn't simply showing off, it was predicting the future. That's why collectors and historians admire it so much today. Not because it was produced in large numbers, not because it changed the market overnight, but because it proved what American engineers were capable of imagining. The 1941 Chrysler Thunderbolt wasn't just another rare luxury car. It was a rolling laboratory, a showcase of ideas that were far ahead of their time. A masterpiece created just before the world changed forever. And maybe that's what makes it so fascinating. It wasn't remembered because millions of people owned one. It was remembered because almost nobody did. Only a handful were ever built, making every surviving Thunderbolt one of the rarest treasures in American automotive history. The 1941 Chrysler Thunderbolt wasn't just a beautiful automobile. It was a vision of tomorrow, built years before tomorrow ever arrived.
Number 4. The 1936 Stout Scarab. When I first discovered the 1936 Stout Scarab, I honestly thought I was looking at a concept car from the 1960s. There was no long hood, no separate trunk, no traditional sedan shape. Instead, it looked like a smooth aluminum capsule rolling down the road, something that seemed completely impossible for the mid-1930s. If you parked the Scarab next to other American cars of its time, it would almost look as if it had traveled back through time from several decades into the future. And in many ways, that's exactly what it was. The man behind this extraordinary machine was William Stout, an aviation engineer who believed cars shouldn't simply evolve, they should be completely reinvented. Instead of asking how to build a better automobile, he asked a much bigger question. What if we started over from the beginning? The result became one of the most revolutionary vehicles America has ever produced. The first surprise was the engine. Nearly every American automobile of the 1930s placed its engine in the front. That was simply the accepted way of building a car. But Stout ignored tradition. He moved the engine to the rear, freeing up space where the engine normally sat and allowing him to design an interior unlike anything people had ever seen. Step inside the Scarab and you immediately realize this wasn't designed like an ordinary automobile. Instead of squeezing passengers into fixed seats facing forward, the cabin was treated almost like a living room. The floor was flat, there was plenty of room to walk around. Several seats could be repositioned or rotated, allowing passengers to face one another and carry on conversations during the journey. Imagine seeing that in 1936. Most cars of the period were cramped, noisy, and purely functional. The Scarab felt more like a private lounge than a passenger car. William Stout's background in aviation influenced almost every detail. He believed automobiles should borrow ideas from airplanes. The body was shaped to move smoothly through the air. The rounded design wasn't simply because it looked unusual. It was designed to improve aerodynamics years before that became a major focus of the industry. Even the windows wrapped around the body in a way that created incredible visibility, flooding the cabin with natural light. Passengers didn't feel trapped inside a small sedan. They felt like they were traveling inside something completely new. Looking at the Scarab today, it's almost impossible not to think of the modern minivan. Rear engine, flexible seating, spacious interior, passenger comfort as the highest priority. These are ideas that became popular decades later with the Chrysler minivan and countless family vans around the world, but William Stout was already exploring them in the 1930s. That's what makes this car so astonishing. It wasn't simply ahead of its time, it was almost an entire generation ahead. Unfortunately, being ahead of your time doesn't always guarantee success. The Scarab was incredibly expensive to build. Its advanced engineering, handcrafted construction, and unique design made it far more costly than ordinary American automobiles. Very few people could afford one, and even among wealthy buyers, many simply weren't ready for something so different. Most customers wanted familiar cars. They wanted large sedans with long hoods and traditional styling. The Scarab challenged everything people thought a car should look like. For some, it was brilliant. For others, it was simply too strange. As a result, production remained unbelievably small. Fewer than 10 examples were ever built. Think about that for a moment. Not hundreds, not thousands, not even dozens, just a handful of vehicles. That instantly made the Scarab one of the rarest American automobiles ever created. Every surviving example is now treated almost like a priceless piece of industrial art. Most collectors rarely see one. Museums proudly display them, and automotive historians continue to study them because the Scarab introduced ideas that would shape the future of transportation decades later. Looking back today, it's easy to see that William Stout wasn't building a car for the 1930s. He was building a car for the future. The world simply wasn't ready for it. The 1936 Stout Scarab wasn't forgotten because it failed. It was forgotten because it asked people to imagine a future they couldn't yet see. A future where cars focused on passengers instead of engines, where interiors became living spaces instead of rows of fixed seats, where practicality and innovation mattered more than tradition. Today, many of those ideas are completely normal, but in 1936, they seemed almost unbelievable. The Stout Scarab wasn't just another rare American automobile, it was one of the boldest engineering experiments ever placed on four wheels. A machine that looked like tomorrow, built in a world that was still living in yesterday. And maybe that's why it remains one of the most fascinating and mysterious cars in American automotive history.
Number 3. 1939 Studebaker Champion Prototype. When I first discovered the 1939 Studebaker Champion prototype, I honestly couldn't believe this was a car designed before World War II. Because it doesn't look like the typical American automobile from the late 1930s. At that time, most cars still followed a very familiar formula. A long hood, a tall upright grille, separate fenders, large, heavy bodies. Manufacturers were improving their vehicles, but most designs still looked like they belonged to an older era. Then, Studebaker started experimenting with something completely different, something smoother, something more modern, something that looked like it belonged in the future. Before the production Studebaker Champion became one of the company's most important models, engineers created experimental prototypes to test new ideas in design, engineering, and efficiency. These prototypes were not just slightly modified versions of existing cars. They represented a completely new direction, a vision of what the American automobile could become. The first thing that stands out about the Champion prototype is the styling. Instead of the boxy shapes common in the 1930s, it featured smoother curves and a more aerodynamic appearance. The body looked cleaner, the proportions looked lighter, the entire design seemed focused on reducing unnecessary weight and creating a more modern silhouette. It almost looked like a car from another decade. And that was exactly what Studebaker was trying to achieve. The company knew the automotive world was changing. Customers were starting to expect more than just a basic machine. They wanted better efficiency, better comfort, better design. Studebaker wanted to create something that could compete with the biggest names in Detroit while offering something unique. The Champion project became an opportunity to rethink the traditional American car. Instead of simply making vehicles bigger and more powerful, Studebaker explored the idea of making them smarter and more efficient. That was a risky idea during an era when many buyers still associated bigger size with better quality. At the time, American car culture was built around large engines and impressive dimensions. A smaller, lighter, more efficient vehicle was not always easy to sell. But Studebaker believed the future would eventually move in that direction. And, in many ways, they were right. The Champion that eventually reached production became known for being affordable, economical, and surprisingly advanced for its time. It helped Studebaker survive in a highly competitive market. But before that success happened, engineers had to experiment. They had to test ideas. They had to build prototypes that pushed the boundaries. And some of those early experiments disappeared almost completely. That's what makes the 1939 Studebaker Champion prototype so fascinating. Very few examples survived. Many prototypes were destroyed after testing. Others were simply forgotten as newer models replaced them. Unlike production cars, prototypes were rarely preserved because manufacturers considered them temporary. They were tools for development, not future collectibles. Nobody expected decades later that enthusiasts would want to find them. Because of that, surviving examples are incredibly rare. For many automotive historians, seeing one is almost impossible. They exist mostly in old photographs, factory documents, and stories from people who remember Studebaker's ambitious experiments. And that's what gives this prototype such a mysterious feeling. It represents a moment when the future was still being created, a time when engineers were asking, what should the next generation of American cars look like? The Champion prototype was not just about appearance, it represented a different philosophy. Instead of following the traditional path, Studebaker was searching for efficiency, simplicity, and smarter engineering. Those ideas would become increasingly important in the years that followed, especially after World War II, when fuel economy and practical design became much more valuable. Looking back today, the prototype feels like a missing chapter of American automotive history. It shows that innovation didn't always come only from the largest companies. Smaller manufacturers were also experimenting. They were also dreaming about the future. They were also trying to build something different. The 1939 Studebaker Champion prototype wasn't famous because millions of people owned one. It wasn't remembered because it dominated the market. It became special because almost nobody ever had the chance to see one. A forgotten experiment, a glimpse of a future that was still being designed, a rare machine that existed for a brief moment before history moved on. And that's what makes it so fascinating, because sometimes the most interesting cars aren't the ones that became successful. Sometimes they're the ones that show us what could have been. The 1939 Studebaker Champion prototype was one of those cars, a hidden piece of American automotive history, a futuristic idea from a company brave enough to imagine something different. And today, it remains one of the rarest reminders that the road to the future is often built by forgotten experiments.
Number 2. 1938 Phantom Corsair. When I first discovered the 1938 Phantom Corsair, I honestly thought I was looking at a movie prop from the future. Because this car doesn't look like something built in the 1930s. It looks like something a billionaire superhero would drive through the streets of a futuristic city. The extremely low body, the smooth aircraft-inspired shape, the hidden running boards, the completely unusual proportions, everything about the Phantom Corsair feels like it came from another world. And the most unbelievable part? This wasn't a computer design. It wasn't a Hollywood creation. It was a real automobile built almost 90 years ago. In the late 1930s, most American cars still followed a very traditional formula. Large upright grills, separate fenders, tall bodies, chrome everywhere. Luxury meant making a car bigger and more impressive, but the Phantom Corsair ignored almost every rule. It wasn't trying to look like anything else on American roads. It was designed to represent the future. The man behind this incredible machine was Rust Heinz, a member of the famous Heinz family. Yes, the same family behind the food company. But Rust Heinz wasn't interested in ketchup. He was fascinated by automobiles, design, and innovation. He wanted to create a vehicle that would completely change people's idea of what a luxury car could be. And that's exactly what he created. The first thing that grabs your attention is the body. The Onium 6 passenger is incredibly low and wide. The roof almost seems to disappear into the body. The front end stretches forward in a smooth aerodynamic shape. There are no traditional running boards sticking out from the sides because they were completely hidden inside the body. This gave the car a cleaner, more futuristic appearance. It looked like the designers had removed every unnecessary detail. The result was a machine that looked like it was moving even when it was parked. But the surprises didn't stop with the exterior. Inside, the Phantom Corsair was just as unusual. Unlike most two-door luxury cars of the era, this vehicle was designed to carry up to 6 passengers. The cabin was spacious and unconventional. The driver sat in a commanding position surrounded by futuristic controls and unusual design elements. The interior felt more like an aircraft cockpit or a private lounge than a traditional automobile. Remember, this was 1938. The idea of making a car feel like a personal luxury space was incredibly rare. Most manufacturers were still focused on making cars comfortable. Rust Heinz was thinking about making cars unforgettable. The Phantom Corsair also included advanced features that seemed impossible for its time. It featured a streamlined body designed for better aerodynamics. It used a front-wheel drive layout. It had a warning system that alerted passengers when doors were open. It even included buttons and controls that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. For the late 1930s, this wasn't just a car. It was a vision of tomorrow. But creating something this revolutionary came with a huge problem. The Phantom Corsair was extremely expensive and complicated. It was built by hand. Every detail required time and money. It was never going to compete with ordinary production cars. Instead, the plan was to create a limited production luxury automobile for wealthy customers who wanted something nobody else had. The estimated price would have been far higher than most luxury vehicles of the era. And unfortunately, history interrupted the dream. Rust Heinz died in 1939 at a young age, and without his leadership and financial support, plans to put the Phantom Corsair into production collapsed. The world also moved closer to World War II, making ambitious luxury projects almost impossible. In the end, only one Phantom Corsair was ever completed. One. A single example. That's why this car became one of the greatest mysteries in American automotive history. Imagine creating a machine that looked decades ahead of its time, only for almost nobody to ever see it.
Unlike famous cars that were produced thousands of times, the Phantom Corsair existed almost like a legend, a hidden treasure, a forgotten dream. Over the decades, it became one of the most recognizable concept-like automobiles ever built. Collectors, designers, and historians continue to admire it because it represents pure imagination. It wasn't created simply to sell cars, it was created to show what was possible. And looking back today, many of its ideas feel surprisingly modern. Aerodynamic styling, luxury interiors, advanced controls, a focus on passenger experience. These concepts became common many years later, but the Phantom Corsair was exploring them before the world was ready. The 1938 Phantom Corsair wasn't a failure because the idea was bad. It failed because the dream was too ambitious for its time. It was too expensive, too unusual, too futuristic. The world of the 1930s simply wasn't ready for a car like this, but maybe that's exactly why it remains so fascinating. Because some cars are remembered because they sold millions. Others are remembered because they changed history. And then there are cars like the Phantom Corsair. Cars that exist because someone dared to imagine something nobody else could see. A machine that looked like Batman's personal automobile before Batman ever needed one. A one-of-a-kind American masterpiece, a glimpse of the future built in 1938. The Phantom Corsair wasn't just ahead of its time, it was from a time that hadn't arrived yet.
Number 1. 1935 Hoffman X8. When I first discovered the 1935 Hoffman X8, I honestly couldn't believe this car existed. Because it doesn't look like an automobile from the 1930s. It looks like something that escaped from a science fiction movie. The strange, streamlined body, the futuristic proportions, the unusual engineering hidden underneath. Everything about the Hoffman X8 feels like someone designed a car for the year 2000, but somehow built it in 1935. At a time when most American cars still looked tall, heavy, and traditional, the Hoffman X8 appeared to come from another planet. And the craziest part? Almost nobody remembers it today. In the 1930s, the automobile industry was going through one of the most exciting periods in history. Designers and engineers were searching for the future. Aerodynamics were becoming more important. New materials were being tested. Companies were experimenting with ideas that seemed impossible only a few years earlier. Most manufacturers were making small improvements to existing designs, but some dreamers wanted to completely reinvent the automobile. The Hoffman X8 was one of those dreams. The person behind this unusual machine was Michael Hoffman, an inventor who believed the traditional automobile layout was outdated. He didn't want to build just another car. He wanted to create something revolutionary, something that would make people forget everything they knew about automobiles. And when people saw the Hoffman X8, they definitely noticed. The body looked incredibly advanced for its era. Instead of boxy shapes common in the 1930s, it featured smooth, flowing lines inspired by aircraft design. The car looked like it was designed to cut through the air. Every curve had a purpose. Every detail seemed focused on creating a machine that looked faster and more modern. Remember, this was before aerodynamic design became common in American cars. Most vehicles of the time still had upright grilles and designs based on older horse-drawn carriages. The Hoffman X8 looked like it belonged to a completely different future. But the most fascinating part wasn't just the styling, it was the engineering. The X8 was built around a radical idea that challenged traditional automobile design. Instead of simply copying what Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler were doing, Hoffman wanted to create a completely new type of vehicle. The goal was better performance, improved efficiency, and a smoother driving experience. It was an ambitious vision, perhaps too ambitious, because creating a revolutionary automobile requires more than just a great idea. It requires money, manufacturing ability, a reliable supply chain, and most importantly, customers willing to take a chance on something completely different. The X8 had the imagination, but it never had the opportunity.
Only a single prototype was built. The car never reached full production. The dream of creating a new American automobile company disappeared almost as quickly as it appeared. And over time, the Hoffman X8 faded into obscurity. Unlike famous experimental cars that were preserved by major manufacturers, this machine came from a much smaller effort. There were no thousands produced, no large company protecting its history, no massive marketing campaign keeping its name alive. It simply disappeared. And that's what makes discovering it today so fascinating. Because the Hoffman X8 feels like a lost chapter of automotive history, a forgotten experiment from an era when inventors believed anything was possible, a futuristic machine from a forgotten era, a prototype that looked like it came from another world, a dream that never became reality, but still managed to leave behind one of the strangest stories in American automotive history. The 1935 Hoffman X8 wasn't just a forgotten car. It was a glimpse into a future that arrived many decades later. A machine built too early, a vision ahead of its time, and one of the most mysterious American automobiles ever created.